I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Appointments and Ordinance Committee at 5:40 p.m. on September 14th. This meeting is being recorded by the A&O Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, please notify the chair at this time. In accordance with MGL C30A SS 20G, no person shall address a meeting of public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body. If after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting. And if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove them and the person from the meeting, or you will be ejected from the Zoom format. All right. Councillor Golub?
I'm here.
Councillor Bullock?
I'm also here.
Councillor Ricketts? Councillor Lapiensky? If Councillor Ricketts joins us, please let me know if anyone sees her come in. We do have a quorum. There are no minutes to accept. Public hearings, none. And that brings us to motions. Let me give a brief what we're doing on these. The code of Greenfield. So I don't mean any disrespect to either one of you, but sometimes people don't understand the difference between the code and the charter. So our charter is the rules, and the chapter and ordinance is the code. It's the minutia. It's the details. So we give broad brushes in the charter, and the specifics to operate the municipality are in the code. So when anything changes in the municipality by department, it changes the code. So let me give a hypothetical example. If the state of Massachusetts changed the perk rate for a perk test to a certain amount of inches in a time period in Title V, and they change that, we as a municipality have to change our city code to take in that new law, because if not, we're out of compliance. That doesn't go in the charter. It comes in, we put a sticky note onto the code in the clerk's office that says it's now 3 inches in a 5-minute period or whatever it is. And we do that. Then at a specific time mandated by charter, it says we must review code. And that happened to be 2020. It must be and I don't know this for exact, but it's probably like years ending in 0 or years ending in 5 and 0. And you have to do that. You have to do that. Well, during COVID, as we might imagine, we began to review code early, and we sent them out to all of the department heads, and they sent in their changes, and we were reviewing them, and then COVID changed the world and things went amok. And some of the code that came in that was essential that we change wasn't updated. And now we're seeing some of the repercussions of that, because there are certain things that the municipality has to do, but the code doesn't reflect the real law because it's changed. So we are doing the maintenance to bring our code back to compliance. So it's not like a charter change where we're coming up with ideas and maybe a new philosophy. We're really just doing what we've got to do. Or it's a policy that a department has been following. They've changed it internally, like when Marlowe changed central maintenance and made it part of that. That would actually probably be a code change, somewhere along the line, because it's how we operate now. But So that's what we're doing. So when we go through these, amend the code, the city, Greenfield ordinance chapter, blah, most of these are maintenance. And there's a specific reason. These are the ones that are pending. So we have to get them voted. Marlo will talk to us in a moment. I'm going to read the first one, which is the sewer use. And then we're going to get an explanation from Marlo, who I invited to be here tonight to kind of give us an idea. Any questions from my counselors on that? Okay. Upon the recommendation of Mayor Wiedegardner, an order amending the code of the city of Greenfield, move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the code of the city of Greenfield, chapter 355, sewer use, as written in the strike-through attached hereto, and further amend the code, chapter 355, with the following global changes: change town to city, change DPW superintendent to director of public works, change policy on water and sewer service and user fee to water and sewer customer service policy, and further amend the index of the code, and further that no substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the city of Greenfield. Can I have a second on that for discussion?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. That was Councilor Bullock?
Yep.
All right. So it's the installation of building sewers. We could go through this strike-through version, but I'm going to do this. Director Warner, could you tell us what this is all about, please?
So you actually introed with much of what's going on here with the global changes. Obviously, there's quite a few of them. But we got a couple of things in play on the sewer here. Water sewer regulations and regulatory functions seem to be evolving and continuously changing. A lot's changed since the code has changed that we have to follow under sewer regulations. A lot of what's changed here or added has a lot to do with the consent order, which I think most of us are familiar with under the sewer I&I. They made it part of the consent order to add FOG, which we call fats, oils, and greases, which we didn't have much interpretation on that, but it's a serious thing in our sewer system. So in a nutshell, all the changes are regulatory or things we needed to add under regulation we didn't have in our code. I know that's in a nutshell. I could go through each and every one and explain, but it might be simpler if anybody had any questions on the actual changes. An example is the minimum slope on a sewer pipe, to drill down has changed from 6-inch to 4-inch under our policy in regulation. So it's a simple change from a 6-inch pipe to a 4-inch pipe. That's an example. So everything that was incorporated, both sewer, and we'll get to the water, basically fall under regulatory changes that have lagged in the code.
And Marlo, I see 355.14, the grease and oil sand interceptors. We've changed the title, and then there seems to be many pages of blue wording, and that is just the policy on that. Is that what that is?
Yeah, so that they changed the name of it. They call it, well, we call it FOG for short in my world, but fats, oils, and greases in the sewer system. And that is the policy we're going to follow on any new building code or existing restaurants as far as installing grease traps internally and externally.
And this is the code we've been following.
Yeah, it's regulation, and the consent order made note of it in there. And by the way, I know we're a little late since we started this, but I have to have it in place by January of this year, according to the consent order. So we've got time, perfect timing actually. So here we are.
I see, unless we run into a major snafu, which I see none, once we vote it here, it'll be on the next full council agenda. So I'll bring this one that's on the floor, which I have just read, and now I'm trying to find the page, amending the code of Chapter 355, which is the one I read. Is there any other questions, concerns from either one of our counselors on this committee? Marlo, anything else that you'd like to add?
Not really. I think I summarized pretty well.
Okay, we're going to get to the next one.
This is going to improve our sewer system. Fog is a really big issue. We haven't had any policy on it, so that's kind of written into the code here.
All right. Councilor Bullock, anything?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. All those in favor of sending a positive recommendation, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation on 355. All right. Upon recommendation of Mayor Wiedegarter, an ordinance, the City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Wiedegarter, an ordinance amending the code of the City of Greenfield, move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the code of the City of Greenfield, Chapter 415, Water, as written in the strike-through attached hereto, and further amend the code Chapter 415 with the following global changes: change town to city, and further amend the index of the code, and further that no substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted, in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the City of Greenfield. Can someone second that?
Second.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded. Director Warner, would you like to add anything to this?
Well, I think it's much of the same globally. I think there's less changes under the water use regulations than there was sewer. But it basically brings us up to standard and regulation on how we handle different things as noted with the changes. Biggest note is tapping one of our water mains shall be done by us rather than a contractor, especially on a Friday afternoon, because if something goes wrong, it goes really wrong. So that's something we've entered into the code. It's been our policy for a long time, and I wanted to add that into the code specifically because code overrides our policy. That's how our internal policy is written or derived from, is from the code. So I thought that was important.
And Director Warner, I also noticed that you got made it very specific in the code, the policies as they appear to affect homeowner versus responsibility of the municipality. And those are the ones we've been following, but I'm guessing they weren't in the code prior.
Well, I think they were, for lack of better terms, I think it was a little gray, and I think this cleans up to be more specific on what our policy has been forever as far as the ownership of water and sewer services. As an example, it's always been the homeowner's responsibility. It's their service, so to speak. So I think this cleans up and makes it more clear. Trust me, I've had many discussions in my many years with the DPW with homeowners. So I think this really cleans it up and clears it up, so it's for lack of a better term, pretty black and white on who's responsible for what.
You know, I always find it interesting. My first go around as a counselor and now coming back is when we go through these, I'm always amazed at how many times I say, we've always done it this way. You know what I mean? Like when it
Yeah.
says, you know, the homeowner's responsible from the house to the curb box or whatever. It's always been that way, but it doesn't always mean it's written somewhere. It's this, you know, that's when we talk a lot of times when we're doing these, we talk about what's the precedent. What's the precedent? What have we always done? We go to precedent. We look back. Oh, we voted on the meeting in 1997, you know, or whatever, but it was never put in a code. So I appreciate that. And that's people like rules to follow as long as they're the same rule for everybody. And when you have a code, then people can say, well, it was the same for Catherine's house as it was for Dan's house. You know what I mean? And then we're in a good place.
You know, and I agree. I think in all our positions with the city, there's nothing worse than gray language dealing with anything. From a counselor's perspective, my perspective, or fire chief's perspective, and anyone's, you know. So it was one of my goals to clear some of this stuff up. I'm glad we're here. And I went to water training today, water classes, and there's going to be some other changes coming down from the federal EPA and DEP level that we may have to add going forward. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. This is where we're at right now. So.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And I appreciate that. Is there any other discussion on this? Any questions from the committee?
Nope.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor of sending a positive recommendation to full council?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? There's only 3 of us and I hear the 2 of you, but I'm still following format. So thank you. We'll send a positive unanimous recommendation on that. I don't believe we have anyone from the next few that are here. I don't think any more pertain to you, Marlo, correct? We've got tag sales, unless you want to take that on. Alcoholic beverages, peddling and solicitation, and disposition of business. And so feel free to stay, Marlo, but I appreciate your time. Does anyone else have anything for
Vice President Gwynn, if I may? Yeah. I didn't catch this, but I am prepared for it. There was another section on stormwater management further down on the agenda, and trees.
Yeah, I'm trying to find this. This is under discussion, not motions.
Okay.
So I don't know. Catherine, did you notice, on those ones under number 6, do we have motions for those? Page 41. I'm just trying to think.
I'm still learning to discern the difference between all the different things, and so I didn't.
Yeah, no problem.
I can look down.
Yeah, they're not in the form of a motion, so they were for discussion. I'm guessing that's, but we can definitely take those. So if you want to stay, and because that comes up pretty quick in our discussions, Marlo, you know what I mean, if you're going to hang for a bit. And I don't imagine the others. Counselors, I'm going to continue with these amendments because we could, if we stop now, we have to stop the other one. So I'm going to continue, and if we have any questions, we can always change something around. But I'm going to continue the format that I've started.
Yeah. And I will stay in order to help with the discussion, which will help facilitate down the road, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's perfect. And you can help me on tag sales too, so don't go too far. All right. Because I know I'd like to see those signs off your freshly painted poles, but that's a different story. So, all right. The City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Wiedengartner, an ordinance amending the code of the City of Greenfield, move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the code of the City of Greenfield, Chapter 394, tag sales, as written in the strike-through attached hereto. 394-3, delete permit, replace with registration. 394-3, delete until a permit for the same has been issued by, and replace with until registering with. Delete Board of License Commissioners, replace with City of Greenfield. delete Board of License Commissioners or its designee, replace with City of Greenfield. Delete permit, replace with registration. Delete permittee, replace with registrant. Delete apply for a permit, replace with register a tag sale. Add via email and add there is no fee for this permit. I have a question there, but we'll stop. 394-4, delete person, replace with household, add or 3 consecutive days if it is a recognized holiday weekend. 3946, delete permit, replace with registration. 394-8, delete him, replace with chief of police. And further amend the code, chapter 394, with the following global changes. Change town to city. And further amend the index of the code, and further that no substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the city of Greenfield. Can someone second that?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Golub. Okay. I know why you used to have to get a paid permit to have a tag sale. Now you just have to register with the city. But can someone, when I was reading 394-3, at the end of it, it says, and I just want to see, it says, and add there is no fee for this permit. So is it a permit? Didn't we just say not to call it a permit above there? It says, delete until a permit for the same has been issued and replaced with until registered with. It keeps saying delete, replace with the same, delete permit, replace with registration. So shouldn't it say there is no fee for this registration if we're getting rid of the word permit?
Yep, I think
I agree.
Right, Dan.
Can we make a motion to amend?
I'll motion to amend.
And could you just say what we're amending?
Say, we are amending the phrase, there is no fee for this permit, and we're replacing it. We're deleting that and we're replacing it with, there is no fee for this registration.
Councilor Bullock, would you second that?
Second.
All right. There's we have a amendment on the floor. Any other discussion on this amendment? I didn't read through this whole thing, but I think we are correct. If we find we're not, they'll tell us before the full council meeting. Any other discussion on this? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The amendment passes. Is there any more discussion on the tag sale ordinance?
Just that
I want to look at
my family is finding this really thrilling, and they're all seconding and eyeing in the background here.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We like that. We like that.
Future city councilors.
Signs. I just want to read the sign part, Marlo, while I have you. Signs promoting tag sales shall not be erected more than 2 days prior to any tag sale. No sign promoting any tag sale shall exceed 2 square feet. All signs shall be removed immediately after the registration expires. No sign shall be attached to traffic signs, utility poles, street lamps, street signs, or shade trees. That's already part of the ordinance. And once again, you know my pet peeve. I hate ordinances that we don't enforce. And I just wanted to make sure that I reiterated that while we were going through this. And that was my only thing. I wanted to make sure it was in there because I have noticed, as I mentioned to Director Warner, I think at the last council meeting, they painted all those poles in downtown and they are completely covered with signage, stickers. And there was something about riverboat cruises or something. And they make, what they're doing now with those signs, they're making them on their computers out of those full 8.5 by 11 sticky backs. they're not posting them up anymore. They're like giant bumper stickers. And then they just slap them on the poles or put them on our painted power boxes that are all, people did murals on and such. So I will talk about code enforcement at another time, but it is on here about tag sales. And I really don't see a lot of tag sale signs. I do see some violations where people are putting them on trees in the shade belt. I do see some of that, but I will say that I don't think we have a perennial problem with tag sale signs staying up all the time, way after the tag sale. I do see some, I'll go by and I'm like, that's been up there for like 2 weeks, but you cannot imagine for both Councilor Bullock and Councilor Gullub in my last go around, and if Councilor Ford she's still on this call, tag sales ordinance was a big deal. We spent so much time. We had one of Councilor Forgey's huge supporters when she ran for mayor. They were like the king and queen of the tag sale amendments down on Deerfield Street. They came to every meeting and talked about the tag sale ordinance. So when I saw it getting reviewed today, I don't know, it was kind of a mixed emotion going through. Councilor Forgey, you can talk to us if you put your unmute because there's only 3 councilors on tonight, so.
Well, I appreciate it, but yes, that brings back a lot of fond memories. Thank you.
I can just remember you and we'd spend half a meeting talking about tag sales, and I'd say, is this really happening? But I will tell you, on a side note, there are times when I'm sitting at our new council meetings wishing I was talking about tag sales because that was a lot. Sometimes I got a lot more out of that than what I've been talking about lately. But anyways.
Okay.
Are there any more discussion? Councilor Director Warner?
Yeah, just to dovetail off that a little bit, what I am aware of and that we've been asked to enforce in the past is any city property, if there was any private soliciting, such as signs in our tree belt, I've seen them out there, slate repair, or even campaign signs or whatever, that it's, to my understanding, it is in the code. I know it is somewhere. I was always asked to retrieve those when I was a young supervisor in the yard. We'd receive complaints. So city property, in my opinion, would include the light poles, street light poles. Can't stop it on Eversource property, on the telephone pole. But
who enforces that?
I find it always the city. I would receive phone calls in the office or from the mayor's office or former select board to retrieve these when there was a complaint. Basically, I didn't ride around all day and look for them, but and then we always kept them. We didn't throw them away so that the owners of them could retrieve them from the DPW. That's just a little history. That's all.
What I find interesting when we're talking about this, and I'm sorry I'm tangenting so much, but what I find interesting, especially on those sticky ones that were like go on a riverboat cruise, is they have their phone number on them. They have a point of contact because it's not graffiti style signs. It's like an event or a concert or a something, so it's not like we can't find these people. I mean, the riverboat place could say, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't put them up there. You know what I mean? Someone must have stuck them up there. But, in the past, they pay someone, to their job is to post bills. I mean, that's what someone does in big cities. Their job is to walk around and stick them on, bus shelters and, all that kind of stuff. But we do have a point of contact on most of these, so that might be helpful as we move on, but we can talk about that.
And then,
is there any other? Okay, I'm sorry.
God bless him. Peter Miller used to go around and remove them from our traffic light poles. He's no longer with us, but God bless him. He spent a lot of time doing that, removing stuff.
Yeah, our friends on Deerfield Street used to do the same thing. They used to do that kind of stuff. Is there any other discussion on this? Any other questions or concerns from either one of the councilors on this committee? All those in favor of sending a positive recommendation to full council, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation with the amended version. All right. The City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Wiedegarter, an ordinance amending the code of the City of Greenfield. Move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the code of the City of Greenfield, Chapter 209, alcoholic beverages, as written in the strike-through attached hereto. 209-6, removal of patrons. Remove persons and replace with patrons. Remove except the bartender and or other person duly employed by the business solely for the purpose of cleaning and closing of business. Replace with any liquor license or their manager shall not be prohibited from being on the licensed premises at any time, provided further that the employees, contractors, or subcontractors shall not be prohibited from being upon such premises at any time for the purpose of cleaning, making renovations, making emergency repairs to, or providing security for such premises, or preparing food for the day's business, or opening or closing the business in an orderly manner. 209-10, delete 3, replace with 6. Delete entire text, replace with the Board of License Commissioners may, after hearing or reasonable opportunity, therefore, cancel any license issued for the sale or service of alcoholic beverages issued under MGL Chapter 138 in the licensee ceases to conduct that licensed business for the period of 6 months or more. And further amend the code, Chapter 209, with the following global changes: change town to city. And further amend the index of the code, and further that no substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted, in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the City of Greenfield. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Did anyone notice anything that we need any clarification on? There are comments where they are justifying these changes based in this purple boxes. The request amendment changes the language to match Massachusetts general law, you know, exactly what we spoke on. And a lot of that too changed, you know, about patrons and the word persons and patrons became, because they don't want customers, but employees were still persons. So they had to change persons to patrons to allow that if you're in there doing the cleaning or the bookkeeping or remodeling during COVID days, technically you're in violation of your own permit because you are a person. So these are to bring the language into order. Anything that anyone else saw on this? Seeing none, any other discussion? All those in favor of sending a positive recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation as written. The City Council, upon recommendation of Mayor Wiedegarter, an order amending the code of the City of Greenfield, move that be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the code of the City of Greenfield, Chapter 337, peddling and soliciting, as written in the strike-through attached hereto. 337-1, definitions, delete C entirely. 337-3, application for certificate, section C, delete a felony and replace with a sexual crime where they must register as a sex offender, a violent felony, or a felony involving financial crimes such as embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, or similar. Section E, insert review the background of the applicant using Section C as a guide. If the police department approves the application, they shall then forward the application to the Board of License Commissioners for their review and approval. The police department shall. (337-4). Revocation of certificate expiration date. A. Delete Board of License Commissioners, replace with Police Department in 2 instances. 337-8. Fees. Add Police Department in 2 instances and delete except that the Board of License Commissioners shall waive said fee for any charitable, religious, social, political action or nonprofit group, including but not limited to veterans groups, hospitals, the United Way, YMCA, and the American Red Cross, and delete unless such fee is waived by the Board of License Commissioners as approved, as provided above. 337-10, badge permits to be displaced. Badge permits to be displaced. Delete the actual cost of such badge size permit or permits shall be in addition to the cost of the license fee. And further amend the code, chapter 337, with the following global changes. Change town to city, change town of Greenfield to city of Greenfield. And further amend the index of the code, and further that no substantive changes to the numbering of the ordinance be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the code of the city of Greenfield. Would someone like to second that?
Second.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded. I'll open discussion. Did anyone have any questions based on the strike-through version? There was an attorney opinion on portions of this in 2018. We're changing the wording, and process was run to the chief of police. So it looks like that is where the duty falls now versus the licensing commission. Once again, the attorney's opinion. DL10 no longer applies. And we do have the question about donations from Mark Smith to Sullivan, Hayes, and Quinn with their explanation, and those explanations were then folded into the changes as submitted by the licensing commission. All of these would have come from the commission. So this would have come from the licensing commission asking for these code changes. That's where they all originated. Anything, questions, concerns from either one of you? Seeing none, all those in favor of sending a positive recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a positive unanimous recommendation. How many more of these do I have left? That was the last one for the code. So that the code, the chapter ordinance changes, code changes are done. That brings us up to amend the rules of procedures, which we already did, and there was a correction to one, and we have it before us again. So I'll reread this. The City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council votes to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure, Section 565-8, Rule 8, Order and Disposition of Business, Section A, Agenda, Subsection 1, to add 10 minutes time for the communications with the mayor and superintendent of schools and school committee. Can I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. So this is a little more where we know. So this was in our original changes to our rules of procedure, but it was they took it verbatim how we talked about it in our meeting, and it was like a parentheses 10 minutes. It wasn't really spelled out. And what we were trying to do was, obviously, if you remember, Councilor Bullock was involved in this too. We were trying to ask that the mayor and the superintendent's regular report to us be no longer than 10 minutes, not when we invite a department head to come and speak. If we ask Director Warner to come in and talk to us about the sewer system, we're not going to say, there's your 10 minutes, thank you very much. This is in that very much update, because we want bullet points. And then obviously if counselors are asking questions, that is up to then the chair. They would, the president would say, I'm going to continue this because there was a lot of questions for the mayor. There was a lot of questions for the superintendent of schools. So that was the amendment that we asked for as here. Any other discussion on this?
I do have a question. And I believe that I was here for the meeting where we talked about this first. And it was my first meeting, and I wish I'd asked it then.
I would have lost a bet if I could have remembered when we did this one.
Yeah, so. I think that I was, but I remember reading this. My question is, like Marley, you were saying that gray language is the bane of everyone's existence. And when I read, if I didn't hear the conversation, when I read to add 10 minutes time to communications, I think communications can encompass both their presentation and their questions of them. And I don't think that that's the intent of this, but it makes me concerned that we have limited time to ask in general, to have conversations with the mayor or the superintendent, and that this time is really precious and important. And I'm concerned that this could be interpreted as limiting the amount of time, as severely curtailing the amount of time that we have to ask them questions, or if it's completely left up to the discretion of the chair, of the council president, and they were like, no questions, that could be highly problematic. And so that's how do we make sure that this allows for counselors to ask the questions, knowing that may go beyond 10 minutes time?
The 10 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if this should actually be labeled, like, when we get to it on the agenda, it's often referred to as like updates from the mayor and superintendent. And I do wonder if it should be clarified that it's the update that should be no more than 10 minutes, because go ahead.
Continue your thought.
Oh, I was just saying, in my experience, that's where the run-on can sometimes happen, that I think this was trying to curtail.
Right. If we look at page 24 of our agenda, it says communications from the mayor. We're getting rid of city officers and employees. It's just going to say communication from the mayor, 10 minutes in that parentheses. And then communications from the superintendent of schools and the school committee, 10 minutes. That's what we're doing. We're putting a time element, and this backs up. What we're adding is that parentheses 10 minutes. That's all we're adding. We're not really changing the rule. We're just taking that subsection 1, and we're adding parentheses 10 minutes to the end of it. Counselor, it doesn't say updates or anything, because we call it communications from the mayor, 10 minutes, communications from the superintendent of 10 minutes. Now, President Gilmore is on this call, possibly. I would interpret that as past council, that's their presentation of 10 minutes. They get 10 minutes. And if they get interrupted by a counselor or questions get asked, that's usually when they're done. Do you know what I mean? They give their little presentation, and then we say, are there any questions? And then we start launching into questions. I would say that their communications is already over by then. Their 10 minutes is over, but that was the communication. If we are then asking questions, that's like in addition to, that's my interpretation. And only because if they talk for 10 minutes and stop, then we start asking questions. They complied to our 10-minute request. It's us that are asking you questions that would ask it, because we don't ask questions as they go. It's not like the mayor says, I'm spent $80,000 to get something narrated, and we stop her and then we start asking questions. We wait till they're all done and then we all launch in. So I think the 10 minutes is their communication piece. Sheila, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry. Are you following the thought on this?
Yeah, and I feel like this came up because people felt like communications from, at the beginning of the meeting, I think people felt like it was running on, and I don't feel like we've had that problem recently. But it is worth saying that, the council's time is limited, and sometimes, these things can go on for a long time. And then we end up voting on really important matters at 10:30 at night when all of us are tired. I don't know about you, but, I'm getting up early to go to work, and I like to be in bed by 11, and I'm not at my best. So I think it was kind of a way to keep our meetings a little bit shorter. And the mayor also sends us emails. So
going on Catherine's question, where she said, when counselors start asking questions, the 10 minutes I feel is their communication. And then our questions is like part B of that. We ask questions when they're done, which wouldn't come out of their 10 minutes because they would already be done. Is that your interpretation?
It is my interpretation, but I understand her concern, because who knows? I mean, when you and I are both gone from the council, if we have someone who wants to rule with an iron fist and doesn't like the mayor and doesn't like their fellow councilors and doesn't want to have discourse, I mean, we shouldn't leave it too open to interpretation.
Right. So,
so can I make a motion? This would be the first time.
Why don't we discuss it? Why don't we discuss what you're thinking, and then we can figure out.
Okay, that sounds good. So here's what I'm thinking. I completely agree with the intent and want there to be language that matches the intent. So what if we, to add 10 minutes time for presentation to delete communications with and replace with presentation from. That's one thing I'm thinking. And the other thing I'm thinking is that in the agenda below, this feels even more minutia, but why not? 10 minutes presentation plus questions, adding that presentation plus questions in the agenda below.
Catherine, I'm going to take what you're saying and run with it, because it won't really mess our agenda. What if we make a section 7 that says, now section 6 says communications from the mayor, 10 minutes. Then then item 7 can be mayor questions for the mayor.
Yeah.
Open-ended. Then it could say item 8, communications from the superintendent of school, 10 minutes, questions for the superintendent of school. So we just move the numbering system down.
Yeah,
and let's not even do that, because Kathy might kill me for that. We can do a 6 and a 6A and a 7 and a 7A, and then it won't change the numbering system. And 6 would be communications, 6A would be questions for mayor, and then 7A would be questions for superintendent of school from council.
That's great.
Would that work?
Yeah, that definitely works. I still would prefer to change communications with to presentation from up above in addition to that.
Because right now we say communications from.
We say communications with. And with.
No, this says from on our page 24.
Oh, I'm reading.
Page 24 of our agenda, only because it says communications from mayor. The
So
one we're
where
voting
I'll
on.
show you where I'm reading. I'm on page 24, the fourth line, move that it be ordered that fourth line starts with communications and then it says with.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, in the actual order it says with, and in the agenda. It's
Okay,
from.
well, let's go back to from, because that's what's on the agenda. How's that?
That's great. That's what,
Because
that
if you look at the agenda underneath, if you look at the actual mock agenda with the strike through version, it says from.
yep.
It doesn't say, and that's why I read it, but I was really looking at the piece here. So let's move to amend, if you'll make a motion. So I would say something to the fact that I'd like to amend this motion to say from the mayor and from the superintendent as listed below in the strike through version, and adding a 6A and 7A that say questions from council for mayor, questions from council for schools, something like that. Does that work for you?
Yeah. It works.
Okay, would you like to make that motion?
Sure,
Excuse
yes.
me. Would you like to make that motion for an amendment?
I will make that motion for an amendment. Let's see how I do. So I move that we remove with and replace it with from to reflect the agenda below. And that we add an item 6A to the agenda for questions from council for mayor, and an item 7A for questions from council for superintendent and school committee.
I'll second that. Any discussion on the amendment? Councilor Bullock, does that sound good to you?
Sounds great.
Excellent. All those in favor of the amended as read?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the amendment passes. I've made a motion. Is there any more discussion on the full motion?
I had one, it's not on the motion, but it's related to the agenda changes. I just had one quick question about it.
Yeah, of course.
Which is, so did we move public comment to go first? It says public, in the comments included, it says public comment, if moved to the first item on the agenda, would occur before the meeting was officially called. And I'm wondering, is public comment being moved, or did we?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think we did that.
No.
I don't know where that came from.
I think we left it because there was times that we were concerned it would need to be moved, and we had the discussion that we had to open the meeting before we could have public comment. And so there was some discussion of like, people have to wait, and it was like opening the meeting takes like 5 minutes. So we left it where it was.
Thanks.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor to amend the Rules of Procedure 565-8, Rule 8. The amended version as voted on. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We will send a positive unanimous recommendation for Section 56.5-8, Rule 8 as amended. All right. Would someone like to read the motion on page 26?
Sure. I can read it.
Actually, I don't think you can read it.
Oh, no, because I'm.
Councilor Bullock, do you want me to read it, or would you like
can-
to read this?
I'm happy to read it.
Okay, thank you.
The City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council approve the formation of the Greenfield Charter Chapters 7-7 and 7-8 Review Committee, an ad hoc committee of the Appointments and Ordinance Committee for the purpose of reviewing and providing recommendations, if any, of the City of Greenfield's Charter, Chapters 7-7, Citizen Initiative Measures, and 7-8, Citizen Referendum Procedures. The 7-member committee will consist of the following appointments, with terms to expire once a final report is submitted to the Appointments and Ordinance Committee. 2 members of the City Council, Catherine Golub and Derek Keeley. 2 members assigned by the Mayor, Danielle Letourneau and Ashley Stemple-Ray. 2 members of the public, Isaac Mass and Albert Norman. Committee Chair and Moderator, David Singer. Majority vote required.
Councilor Gilmore, can you second this for me? Actually, I'll second this motion. I'll second the motion. And then Sheila, what I'm going to need you to do is vote on this motion. Okay, when we vote on this motion.
Oh, because Catherine has to abstain?
Yeah, Catherine's on the motion.
Okay.
On what I'd like to do is have 4 votes. She can vote for herself. I'm not going to say she can't vote, but I don't want it to be challenged, and I would need an extra vote because we wouldn't have a quorum if she didn't. We wouldn't have a quorum if I don't have at least 3 votes.
Yeah, better safe than sorry.
Discussion on this. Let me give you this brainchild because, as you know, this is kind of something I've been working on with a couple of members of the public, former Councilor Singer, the mayor's office. So, as you know, we had 7-7 and 7-8 come up. 7-8 went to a public referendum in the last election. It did not get, the public voted for no change to 7-8. We took that back to the A&O when 7-7 came up. And as they wanted no change with 7-8, we said that we would make no recommendation on 7-7 following what the people had talked about. That did not sit well with some of our community. They wanted more discussion on 7-7 and 7-8. I worked with President Gilmore, and we were trying to find the best way to address this because we want everyone to feel included in this because it deals with the citizens initiative and citizens petition, and we wanted inclusive. So in talking with David Singer, former councilor, he was also the chair of the Charter Review Committee that worked with Sheila and Councilor Forgy and those that sat on there for there. He said, what if we formed a committee that brought in different participants and we had a discussion? And I think the language, if you say provide recommendations, if any, which means they are tasked with a discussion and to bring forward a recommendation if they can come to some kind of agreement. So I went to work. I thought this was a really good idea. And I went to work to make a diversified committee to make sure that we had people from all aspects of the community. So our first thing was to have 2 counselors on the committee. I wanted 1 from A&O and then 1 from the council body. So we would have representation both from someone that sits on full council and then one that sits on full council and A&O. I wanted 2 people from the public. So I went and I feel looked for 2 people that had difference of opinion on 7-7 and 7-8. And I asked Albert Norman personally and Isaac Mass to sit in on this committee, and they both agreed. I think the wealth of information from those 2 individuals on the topic is going to be tremendous. I then asked the mayor if she would put 2 people forward. She originally had indicated that she would mind serving on the committee herself, and then we came to the thought that the chair of the A&O, the president of the council, and the mayor shouldn't be on this committee, that it should be other people, and so it would keep, and we could aid as a kind of an oversight versus being an active member. So she asked Chief of Staff Danny Letourneau, and she asked former Council President Ashley Stemple-Ray to sit on the committee, and they both accepted. And then I wanted a seventh vote. So if there was a situation where the committee couldn't come to a unanimous decision on anything, there would be a seventh member, so we wouldn't get, some kind of 3-3 situation or whatever. So we wouldn't have a 3-3 tie. So I asked David Singer, who was the originator of the thought and then had sat as the chairman of the Charter Review Committee, to come in and be the chair and the moderator. And so he agreed to that. So I believe that this group are being faced with nothing more than having a discussion on 7.7 and 7.8 and come out with some options, some ideas. If they can come to a consensus as a group, I think they can bring that consensus first to A&O, and then from A&O to full council, and then full council can vote on it. It doesn't have to go anywhere else. So that's the purpose and the thought behind it. I think it's diverse. I think it's got really good people that have agreed to take more of their time and work on this project. And I think at the end, now I had some people reach out to me. I don't know if some of the counselors also received emails. I didn't look if it was for everyone, saying, don't task us with them changing 7.8. The people have spoken. There's no change here at all. If you read what their task is, it's to provide recommendations, if any, and review 7.7 and 7.8. It doesn't say that they're tasked with changing anything. They're going to review it. And what's going to happen, and the reason I'm including 7.8 in the initial thought, is there might be language that needs to be blended between 7.7 and 7.8 to get them to work together. And it doesn't mean it's going to change the purpose. It doesn't mean it's going to change what people wanted. 7.8 is really an odd piece. 7.8 was voted in on the original charter at a higher number. It was then recommended to, it went in at a higher number. Then at one of the charter changes, it was changed to a lower number. And then this charter committee recommended to change it back to a higher number. And then the higher number seemed like it was drastically high. So I talked with some of the same people that are on this committee, and they told me if A&O was willing to put on the ballot a lesser number, that they would be more in favor of it. So we lowered the number, and then they went ahead and voted it no anyways. So it's very, it was a very upsetting, because, in the art of compromise, we took it from 10 and we put it to 7, because 7's what's in 7.7. But it originally was a higher number. But the person that proposed the original lowering of the number is the same person that proposed to put it back higher this time, because the threshold was low. So it's a very passionate piece. So we put it on the ballot. When we put it on the ballot, when we put 7.8 on the ballot was written by lawyers, because that's who has to do it. I had it written by counsel in Greenfield to be the easiest way to get the legal question. We sent it to the lawyer, who then sent it to the legislature, and they sent it back in the form that you saw it in. And we had people that insisted that we made the language difficult to confuse people. And that was exactly what I spent hours trying to avoid. I wanted the question to be simple and easy. But when lawyers write questions and municipalities approve them, it wasn't as easy sounding as it left our committee as. But it was vetted before, and it was supposed to be simply, we're raising the threshold, and this is why. We never meant to mislead people or change it or do anything that was, in fact, we still, as it sits today, we still have, even if we had raised it, if 7 to 8 had passed, we'd still be the lowest threshold in this part of the state and most of the state for referendums and such. So there is still a lot of questions there. And then when 7-7 came back to us after, we said we weren't going to change it because the people didn't want to change 7-8, which sounds very similar. And people said, well, that wasn't fair, that we only spent, 38 seconds or something on that decision. And it was a lot more than 38 seconds because we had talked about it for 2 years in the Charter Review Committee. And then we voted, then we talked about it leading up to this. And then when the people said 7-8 to stay the same, we said, then we'll leave 7-7 alone. And then people, and I find it interesting because then today with some of the emails I received about forming this ad hoc committee, it said the people voted to leave 7-8 alone. So why are you going to change it? Well, that goes back to then why are we going to change 7-7? So that's why we need this ad hoc committee. So they can go and discuss all these pieces and come back with some recommendations, if any, for 7-7 and 7-8 to make people feel included. So that's the reasoning, and that's the formation, and that's the motion that's before you.
Can I add my 2 cents very quickly?
Yes.
I know not everyone's here, so I'm going to go through this again at the full council meeting, but I do want people to feel empowered to explore 7-7 and 7-8. I don't want people to shy away from making any changes if they're necessary. And the reason I say this is because I was appointed to the Charter Review Committee in 2020. The pandemic hit shortly after I was appointed, so we had to do all of our meetings on Zoom, and it was, a really long, arduous process. We spent a lot of time talking about these things. The changes that we came out with were rejected by the voters because voters get to say yes or no, but they don't get to say anything like, I'd be okay with it if this. They don't get to make amendments, and that's our job. So I would say that if we do make changes, even though the voters asked us not to make the changes that we proposed initially, if we make changes that benefit our community, that are in line with the intentions of the voters and still make this a more sensible process, I think people should feel empowered to do that.
And yeah, no, I agree, Sheila. And I also believe that if they can come to a consensus in this committee and they can bring that forward and show the reasoning, then I think it's going to be in the best interest of Greenfield. And that was the idea. Can someone remind me, we did not read this motion yet, correct?
I read the motion.
And okay, I got talking so much I forgot. I'm thinking, oh my God, did I just do all that before the motion was placed in?
No, Dan, you go on. You be long-winded. No way.
Never. I feel like this one was going to just go because I've been talking about this for like 3 years, or longer. This is the longest marathon, and I was just kind of flabbergasted today. And it's so disappointing to me when I start getting emails saying from people, "Oh, why are you changing it? Why are you doing?" You're asking me to. You criticize this committee because we didn't give 7-7 enough time. We wrote 7 and 8 so it would be confusing to the voters, and there is nothing further from the truth than that. We did everything we could to make it clear, concise. We're trying to. And even the number of votes that it failed by was minimal. There was no mandate for 7-8 change or not change. It was almost a tie. It only takes one to win. You know what I mean? To have that vote. But I don't know what it was. But someone might know the number. But if you remind me, it was, I don't know. Double-digit difference between the yes and the no vote. So that's what this committee is intended for. It is supposed to be a working subcommittee of this body to bring people together that can sit down and talk about all this. And they will come back with recommendations. it's not, they have no power. They have no authority. There's nothing, whatever they vote in that group is a recommendation. They are working towards a recommendation. They have no authority to change anything. They are looking to aid this committee. They're an ad hoc committee of A&O to help us with a dilemma. And the dilemma was 7 and 7-8 are tough. And no matter what we do, we can't please anybody. No matter how hard I worked on this, I respect Al Norman, always have. He will tell you that I've never treated him disrespectfully, nor will I ever, because I appreciate him for his knowledge. But we've got to take his knowledge and fold it into how we're going to get out of this and not keep objecting. Also, this committee isn't being formed so one person can change it. We're not going to have people continuously send us changes. We have people writing wording for how things are going to be. That's just not how it works. So I am so happy that Al's agreed to sit on this committee so he can sit along people like Catherine and Ashley and David and Isaac and Derek. They can sit down, and when they come back with some recommendations and some discussion, we can move forward and we'll feel very inclusive. Anything else from either one of you? And I promise I'll shut up about this now.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I'm glad that this ad hoc committee is happening. I will say I do just wish it wasn't sort of the usual suspects on it. As someone who didn't follow the 7778 prior to council, and it was sort of like the first thing when I came into council that I started getting emails about and had to familiarize myself with it. I wish we were soliciting the opinions of folks that weren't so in the fold of this already, as more of a like, let's get the take of like the normal people in Greenfield who haven't been thinking about this for many, many years, clearly, and how it would play out, maybe alongside those who have been thinking about it for many, many years. But and obviously I'm not suggesting anything changes or any, and I'm obviously gonna vote for it. But.
No, I appreciate it. Also, committee chair Singer and also Catherine from this committee can also bring forward that maybe they have a meeting where they ask for people to come in and talk to them, like a community outreach session and people that might have opinions. I'm not saying that we all get the script in the mail, emailed over to us, and we come and we read the script, because that happens all the time with 7-7 and 7-8. I'm talking about people with genuine opinions of their own, not scripted by others, to come in and talk to this committee. Yeah. And just talk off the cuff. And I think, and Catherine, you can bring that forward as a recommendation from A&O that we, once you form your committee and you get organized. You can't, it was good because Catherine sent me a couple emails, what's going on, Dan, when's our meeting? And I'm like, well, as soon as we vote it in, we can do it, because we have no power until we vote this in as a council. And then we'll send the recommendation from the full council. This has to go to full council, could be voted out. And then if it goes forward, it will move to David Singer, who will reach out to everybody and hopefully put something together. But you could bring forward that, Councilor Bullock brought up at a meeting, and that I echoed it, that, yeah, it would be nice to include some kind of public forum on this subject with original thought and genuine idea.
Great, let's vote. Unless, Catherine, you have something to add, sorry.
No, just that I think it's a very important topic, and I'm very curious about how the conversation unfolds. And I hear that this is not, I've heard you say many times, and I see it written, that this is not a decision-making body. And I guess I ultimately will participate in a decision-making body on this. And regardless of my personal views, I can see many sides of this situation, of this issue, and I think it's an incredibly important issue, and am really committed to listening to the public. And I'm curious to see how this unfolds, and part of me is looking forward to it.
I'm kind of excited about this, and I do mean that in the most positive way. I really think I'm taking an approach that we don't do a lot, and that is, I can go find the 9 people that hated this from the get-go, and and they keep coming back. But there's also 9,000 others that we haven't heard a word from, except a few thousand voted, yes or no, and almost were in a dead tie, which didn't give us a mandate of direction either. So I think this committee is so important, and I hope that the rest of the council agrees with you and I. Any other discussion? All those in favor of recommending this committee say aye.
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 Oh. Do I?
You can vote. You can no. You can vote. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have a positive unanimous recommendation with the inclusion of President Gilmore giving a positive vote, giving us a quorum if Councillor Golub was challenged in any way as she appears on the motion. All right.
Thank you, Dan, for that hard work, because I know that was a really innovative idea. That's not how we normally do things. So I really appreciate you coming forward with that.
And I appreciate it. And I got to give credit where credit is due. David Singer is just a wealth of information, and he helped me get through this because I wanted to make the right choice, and I wanted to do it correctly, and I wanted to stop the naysayers saying you're trying to, stop people from voices being heard. And if anyone knows me, there's nothing more than nothing more from the truth. I want to hear from people, and I want people to do it. So, but David Singer came up with a thought, and he spoke with people, and I had a very quick conversation with everyone I asked to serve on the committee, and I look forward to seeing what they come up with. So thank you. All right, page 28. Would someone like to read the motion? Catherine, do you want to read this one?
Sure. The City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council, pursuant to Charter Section 210, affirms the following appointments by the mayor to the following. Board of Health, John Romano, term to expire June 30th, 2023, short term to replace Nancy Bershoff. Committee for Review of Charter Sections 7.7 and 7.8, Danielle Letourneau and Ashley Semple-Ray, term to expire upon project completion. Crossroads Cultural District Committee, Jackson Williams, term to expire upon project completion. Health Department Medical Director, Dr. Timothy Lepore, term duration not applicable. Can I read the rest? Majority vote required. Do I read that?
Oh, no, that's fine. You're good. I'll second that. So the motion's been made and seconded. I received no communications from any counselor prior to the meeting with any of the nominations put forward. Any comments from any of the committee? I just will make one quick statement. Obviously, if the council doesn't vote to have the committee for review of Charter Section 7.7 and 7.8, I will say that that is the wrong terminology here. It's not a committee for the review of Charter Section 7. It's an ad hoc committee. It's the ad hoc committee of the appointments and ordinance for a review of 7.7 and 7.8. And I'll make sure that that gets put there, but it's not a real committee yet. So it's a little cart before the horse, but I understand that that's there. Any questions or concerns from anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any abstentions? Any opposed? I will send a positive recommendation to affirm those nominations with the terminology correction for ad hoc committee of A&O. All right. Now that brings us to discussions. Proposed ordinance changes submitted by the City of Greenfield department heads. DPW, page 41 and 42. Marlo?
Okay, so the stormwater management, there's not a whole lot of changes there. I think there's some removals. I believe under I believe what's been removed is the language, the permit and application fee shall be $25 payable to the town of Greenfield. I think like all our other permitting, when I suggest fees or raising fees, lowering fees, whatever it may be, it's always upon the mayor's approval. And I think what we're trying to remove here is an exact fee. And down below there was a $100 fee for non-residential. And I think the language that fees shall be set by the mayor and are non-refundable, because I review our internal policies from the code with the mayor yearly and update them. So I think that's the major changes there. One other note that I just caught was under 38-7B, it says the application form shall be signed by the owner of the property to or by his authorized. I think we need to strike his and write their authorized representative. And then permit fees shall be set by the mayor and are non-refundable. I think those are the only changes from the current code.
Okay.
I think we want to strike out the current fees because they obviously they can go up or down, and they're established yearly, not to be repetitive. Whereas we won't have the opportunity to raise a stormwater permit fee if that's in the code, stuck at $25 for residential and $100 for non-residential.
Okay.
And I think the other areas of the code says upon the mayor's approval or
so that'll bring it into. And did you forward those to the mayor's office? Those changes? How did we get to where there was proposed changes submitted by the City of Greenfield department heads, but they're not showing us your changes? They didn't give us a version showing them. Is that correct?
I think this may have happened after the deadline of November 2020, if I'm remembering correctly, when we had to submit everything.
Okay.
And we caught this after the fact, that the fees were actually in there, a solid fee, I should say.
Okay. So strike the fees and put in the language that says on approval of the mayor.
Yeah. And if we're having discussion, I'd be more than happy to go ahead and resubmit to you the strikeouts and like my water and sewer, if that's.
I would like you to go ahead and provide that and get it to Tammy in the council office, and then it can come up as a motion in our next meeting.
Yeah, will do.
Anything else from the other counselors on this point? Okay. Is 42 is the trees? Is that you, Marlo?
I'm not sure where this came from, to be quite honest, but yes, trees with the tree warden through the DPW, in conjunction with the tree committee and the tree ordinance. I'm not sure who submitted this, to be quite honest.
Okay.
For discussion, I would like to, I suspect this was submitted by the tree committee. Everything on here looks legit in what we go by, but I really would like to sit with my tree warden and review this before we take any action on it.
I think that, I mean, obviously we don't want to be planting invasive species. That
Right.
seems to be the correct piece, but I'd like to hear it from the tree warden who, even if it's a recommendation, and I'm not sure, there's a lot of specific pieces to this page 42 with tree girth and height and you know what I mean? Yeah. So that would be, any comments from the committee on this for Director Warner? So, even Marlo, if you don't get to this one before like the next committee, to next month's A&O, that's okay. Get the other one to us so we can get it, on the motions. If this is going to take a little more work, just let us know.
I think it's pretty simple, but I want to circle back with the tree committee also, because I don't know where this derived from, but I know it should involve us in the tree warden. So.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Director Warner? Do you see anything else that applies to you?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I just didn't want to, I gotta turn a light on. It's getting dark in here all of a sudden.
Actually, I'll hang out for parking and traffic because we're assigned to that committee too from the DPW.
Well, why don't we just, without any objection, why don't we jump ahead to parking and traffic? Parking and traffic, page 57. Wow. Okay. Yep. No. Yeah. So parking is from Daniel Eterno to me. So this is about fees, Marlo. It looks like on page 57, which is kind of a mayoral piece, would you think?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to review it. Just when I see parking and traffic or anything DPW, I mean,
this just says these changes are primarily to take the ordinance, make the ordinance general enough to allow for changes in fees, prices, and locations of lots. It should also allow for changes in technology for paying to park.
Yeah.
So I think those are going to have to be read, submitted as motions.
Okay.
The recommendations, but I think they're going to need to be submitted as motions.
I think they fall under, like we discussed with stormwater, water, sewer, with fees and internal policies.
Yeah, because right now, if you look through the strike-through version, like starting on page 58, it says meters accepting nickels, dimes, and quarters, rates are annually set. That's, those are updates of updates.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can always check in with Danny Letourneau or Chief of Staff Letourneau between now and then and see if she needs it. So.
Yep. Parking permits. Free parking on Saturdays page. That's all parts of this. Metered spaces. Yeah. So there's a strike through version. I guess what I'm going to ask for is, Greenfield zoning ordinances, typically when the office has questions matter with the Greenfield zoning. All right. I think we're going to have to take these, and I don't think it's up to us to break them into ordinances. I think we need to get these submitted as motions, because I'll take a look into that, even the recreation ones. If you, anything else from Marla reading ahead? Do you want to work on that, your portion, which is parking and traffic, and see if we can get them in the form of motions working with the clerk?
Sure.
Is that okay? Anything from this committee on that? This one says, okay, from Christy Moore, the Recreation Department Recreation Committee has thoroughly reviewed the charter and codes relevant to the department. Below is a summary of our suggestions and additions. So no changes to Recreation Commission. There was Recreation Commission, there was revised suggestions, Parks and Recreation Facilities. Okay. Does anyone have it? Did anyone look at these enough for building inspections? I'm guessing that what I'd like them to work on in the clerk's office between now and our next meeting is to work with the department heads and have these in the form of motions so we know what they're doing. I think that's good. Councilor Bullock, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I read them and I kind of understand what they're doing, but I do think in order for us to pass them on to the council, we need them more concise than us giving a like long-winded explanation. Like when I read the parking one, it was really, it wasn't like any major changes. It seems like it's things that are kind of already happening. There was some like, you know, pricing changes and not for like metered spaces. Don't anyone freak out or anything.
All right. So yeah, so why don't we request from the clerk's office, I'll talk to Tammy, that she get with the department heads and get these made in the form of motions, like we just did on the other ones, and bring them back to us. I don't think we have any discussions like we would on a recommendation for change, because most of these are maintenance. These are pieces, this is where their expertise outweighs ours. You know, they know that the law has changed, or they know that the policy has changed. Like Christy Moore knows that recreation department like no one else. You know, she's going to know what's changed. So let's go in that direction and we can follow up.
And it looks like just on the building inspector one, when I think that's only the last page, I think, when I was looking at it earlier. Yep. Yeah, I think the highlighted portion is the actual change. So the rest of it is just kind of context, and the blue is the actual change they're proposing.
Okay.
So and it's just proposing that they change the fee to $100 and a $50 renewal fee.
So we'll ask for that to come back in the form of a motion, and we'll only give some guidance in that if the fee is going to continuously change, they should have more generalized language than specific, because we know in some cases the specific language gets you into trouble when you're talking about fees. You know, we don't want gray area. We want it to be, specific, but that could be simply brought back as a motion. We can't vote on these anyways because they're not presented to us as motions. They're only discussion. So my discussion would be, as Councilor Bullock just said, that looks like a motion to me. I would just have a conversation with Daniel Eterno and Mark Snow to make sure that the fees aren't too specific, because it looks like throughout the whole thing, they have specific dollar amounts. So if that's the case, just bring it in the form of a motion.
And if I may, Councilor Gwynn, we update our actual permits and we put it out there on our website when fees change. So you leave it open in the code, but everyone knows up front when they fill out the permit, the fee is right at the top and there's a checkbox for payment or whatnot. So,
they could even do something. They could do even something like in this 431-3 that they can change the fee of $100 must accompany the registration form. I hate to say this, but they could do, and I don't know what the legality of it in a code was, they could be fees subject to change upon approval of departments, check with licensing application for current rate, some kind of specific disclaimer that says it could be $125 because the mayor increased it, last year. So I will check on that. Thank you. All right. Is there any more discussion on those items? Because we do have to talk about that rule of procedure, and I'll explain that to everybody on the city council obtaining a legal review. Anything else on the building inspector, parking and traffic, recreation, DPW? Nothing there? Okay. Let's talk about, I think Sheila's still on the call, but the rules of procedure. Do we have anything in writing in this? Am I just not seeing it? Was it sent to us later on the city council obtaining a legal review and or opinion? Do we have
This
anything
isn't in writing. Yeah,
Okay,
we
perfect.
don't have it in writing. It was kind of a topic that was brought to our attention. So
Yes. No, I just want to make sure I didn't miss something because I was away and I came back and I had a few unopened, emails. I was answering Catherine from like 2 weeks ago or something. So it was a long day on catching up when I got back. All right, let me explain to this committee what's going on with this rule of procedure. We now are going to have a legal budget line where we are able to have our own representation from the city council side for legal opinion. We don't have to go through the mayor's office for legal opinion as it pertains to council business. That changes a few things because we've never had that fund or that money. And that is to come up with a rule of procedure that gives some guidance and outlines. And that would be simply, and I can work on this and we can all work on this, but it would be to give you an idea of what we're talking about. It would say that any counselor wishing to obtain a legal, a legal opinion on council business must obtain permission from council president and vice president prior to council being requested or hired. And furthermore, we must determine what council is going to be contacted. Because one of the problems we have is we don't have a city council attorney on retainer. It's not like the city attorney, like the mayor goes to that attorney. We don't have that. So if we have a question that we want to ask zoning based from EDC, then we really have to have a lawyer that deals with a municipality zoning. And we would have to get there. So we have to come up with a rule that gives the guidance so no counselor can contact an attorney directly and ask for them to work on a project without approval. And we also have to decide how we go about obtaining attorneys when we don't have one on retainer. So if we just, Catherine decides that she wants an attorney to give an opinion on something that happened in this ad hoc committee. So she brings it forward and we look and we say, well, that really has to do with voting, so we really should get someone in municipal law. And we look for a lawyer that gives that opinion. So that's what we're faced with, is coming up with a rule of procedure. So we can have a rule of procedure that is part of the council rule of procedure on what the steps are when a counselor wants a legal opinion.
Can I ask just a clarifying question here, Dan?
Yeah, of course.
So, and Sheila knows I sort of like stuck my toe in the waters on this last month or 2 months ago. But my understanding is that if we're needing a legal opinion for something that's general, that having to do with city business or council business, we wouldn't necessarily need to use our small legal line. Like if Catherine needed to ask that question that you just proposed, right? Wouldn't she be able to go to the city and get clarification from our lawyer, because that is our lawyer? And because isn't our budget, our legal line currently very small? It's the first time we've ever had one, and it's very small.
Yeah, it definitely is. The problem I think comes up that I believe, and I would have to look at this, I believe there's some language that says the mayor has to approve the use of counsel.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is one of those places where it's like, in other municipalities that function differently, there is a flow of legal questions that may need to be answered between the executive and legislative branch that flow more easily. Just for complete transparency, I requested a legal opinion from our city lawyer and didn't get one. And so my understanding was that, like, we might need that budget line if there was a place where we were sort of in conflict with the executive branch, or there was a more adversarial question. But if it's a general city question, like
you are right.
I talked to a couple other people who are in government, and they were like, no, if it's city business, it should go through the city line. It's when there's a conflict that you need your own lawyer.
I would agree. Here's the situation. When we were reviewing the charter, which you came in on the end of, Councilor Bullock, we sent every single charter recommended change to council, and they gave us an opinion. And they told us if we could do it or not, because it has to go to the municipality, and then it has to go to the legislature, Commonwealth. And we had to make sure that so the mayor approved it, and then it went to the city. We don't get billed for that. That's city business. That was the city lawyer. When we wrote the question for 7/8, and we just mentioned that in the thing, I asked for that to be written by legal, because it was going on the ballot. We didn't pay for that. That came out of the municipality's funding. So you are correct. You are correct in that when it's dealing with the municipality, it gets paid for by the lawyer. But I think there are times when you are correct. There's a conflict, or if the mayor is not agreeing with the council and says she's not going to send it there, we have an issue. But then there still has to be a procedure on the council side.
Agreed. I just wanted to get clarification for my own understanding.
No, I think you are right, and I'm only going by what's in my head, but I know that I have used attorneys. I used to be the head of EDC many years, and then I took on A&O. I've never seen a bill. And of course, in those two things, I'm always asking for legal opinion, because, anything we do, we want it, to be correct. And like I said, I was getting legal opinions. There's legal opinions in this piece that we just read tonight. There was a legal opinion. So I believe you are spot on that when it deals with the municipality, I'll tell you how different today is versus yesterday. On one more history of Greenfield. When I was the first counselor in 2001, the city attorney sat next to the president of the council every meeting. Our attorney was right there. You know how we turn to Kathy, or we turn to Tammy, or we turn to, and Sheila will look over there, or I'll look over there and say, or we look at, we had the city attorney sitting at the meeting. He came to every council meeting. So if there was a question, if we were following procedure, not just Robert's rule, legal, we just asked the attorney. They sat at every meeting. Ed Smith sat right there. So big difference in today, where the attorney is almost kept away from us unless we can find a way to do it except on everything that Kathy Scott sends from this to this committee has never, it goes right out to an attorney. We never get questioned.
Well, I will just say that the process of, I know at that point, of course, we didn't have a process, but the process of going to President Gilmore worked for me to seek clarity on what I needed.
Perfect.
For next steps.
I just think that, and this is just me talking, I said president, vice president. I just think sometimes right now, I would say that I have a great relationship with our president. I think her and I, from being two people that didn't really know each other, we really think about everything, and we come to a consensus pretty easily. But that's not always going to be the way. You could have a president and a vice president, or a president that disagrees with the counselor and says, no, I'm not going to do the attorney because I don't agree with you. So I don't like that. I don't like things falling to one person. So I only recommended that we have the president and vice president make a decision whether we're going to request the attorney, only so it's not a one person over one person decision. And that was my only piece to that.
And if I could add my 2 cents, if people don't mind, I would agree, because if you have a council president who's like some egomaniac and they're never wrong, you're stuck. So having 2 or if it's all the chairs, or, if you want more than one person.
In the day when we had a treasurer, this would have been the thing, but, we don't have a treasurer anymore. But yeah, I just don't, once we get into chairs, if you have 5 chairs and the president and the vice president, then you could have like 7 people deciding if you need an attorney. But I think it's got to be more than one, but, however that works. But I think that's where I was going. I agree, Sheila.
Yeah, I think that it had that procedure been in place, I would have been happy to send it to both of you. So I'm in agreement that president and vice president sounds like a good process.
And I just think because we say you're president and vice president, if people had picked Sheila and I to reach a consensus as often as we do, they would have lost a bet. We do really well, and but that's good. That's good. And you would have thought that I would have said, I don't care what she wants, and it's not like that. But that's not always going to be the way. We only know it's working right now. It could be very different next year if 2 people might not meld, but I think it's good. What about selection of an attorney?
One other question.
What's our thought?
Just one other question.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining a 2-person deciding body could be complicated too if there's no tiebreaker. I don't know. Perhaps 3 would be. But I'm not sure who that 3rd person would be. I'm just imagining if it was split, then what happens?
Here's what I would think. And this is just me. If we want a 3-person decision, I think president, vice president, and chair of Ways and Means would probably be where I'd go, because they control the money and they usually are good on that. And then there could be a situation where the vice president is the chair of Ways and Means, which could happen. But I think if you wanted 3, that you would say president, vice president, and chair of Ways and Means or finance or whatever we're doing with that. And that would just give you your 3rd, which I agree. Having 2, you could still have a stalemate.
Or could we say that since we're thinking of all these like tyrannical situations where like it's like we're always going to worst case scenario here, but could we say it like, we clearly are hoping that our president and vice president are working well together, and so if there is a decision that the counselor who's asking doesn't like, they can appeal to the entire council for a vote. Yeah,
I think that's a really democratic way of doing it. I think that, the request goes to the president and vice president for approval. Any counselor, anyone that feels that their request was denied inappropriately could seek a vote from full council.
Yeah, I like that idea. And I'll say, as someone who didn't seek legal advice, it was mostly because I was worried about spending a very small budget line that we have, and
Yeah.
knowing that we might need our own legal opinions in the near future for other issues.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think 99% of the stuff that we do is paid for by the municipality. You know what I mean? It should be done. If it's EDC, it's zoning, that's town. If it's A&O, it's policy, that's town, city. We've never had a situation, and we're talking about all of these, I forget what vocabulary word you just used, but these draconian kind of rule making. Yeah, thank you. I knew it was something like that. But, we only know the mayor today. I've worked for under two, and they were quite different. You know what I mean? And you don't know who's the next one going to be. And they might have a different opinion. So we just have to have some protections. But that's why I think the rules of procedure saying that it has to have clarity from the president, the vice president. They could simply, like, if Catherine had submitted the one I just threw out there before from this ad hoc committee, she came to me, I'm like, oh, she can send that to the municipalities, our attorney. That has nothing to do with city council. This is a referendum question, or, you know what I mean? This is a charter change. That has nothing to do with us. And then that would be the end of our decision making. The president, the vice president would say, no, this doesn't have to go to our attorney. But if we get something where someone is really questioning, it was getting pretty heated at the Lunt property where, they wanted opinion and we weren't getting them, then we've got to have a procedure for us, because let's face it, the executive and the legislative side are not going to always be singing Kumbaya. You know what I mean? It's not, it's not going to happen. So, the other piece I was wondering is how would we get into the wording? Because I like what Councilor Bullock just said about the having a like almost an appeal built in with the full council. So how do we determine who determines what attorney? Would that go to the same grouping saying what attorney would be obtained? Would it go through that same procedure? That you make a request?
I feel like we should have that was one of the issues was we didn't have an attorney. We had that attorney that we used in executive session who was, I think, pro bono for that event. And so I feel like maybe it's us in this committee should do some work to at least reach out to 3 attorneys or something and have them on doc for if we need to speak to an attorney, are you willing to be our attorney? So that there's just a list ready when we run into this. Because I the situation that you just brought up was the first thing, was in the front of my mind. We might need this line for the Lunt property. So, yeah.
The only problem I run into, and this is just getting more into the minutia of this, is, sometimes you need a zoning attorney, and then sometimes you need labor relations, and you know what I mean? And it's hard because the municipality has one that deals with labor. We have one that deals with zoning. You know what I mean? We have categorized. There's no way we could afford to put them on retainer. Excuse me, but you just said something interesting in that you said, if we just reached out to someone and said, if the city council needs specific work, are you willing to be available on a hourly basis or what have you? And maybe we ask those questions like, what is the hourly rate? I mean, if we have a $700 budget and it's, my FCC lawyer cost me $600 for 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
So when I called it, that's what my attorney does. That's what I pay.
Does anyone remember how big our budget line is for this?
Yeah.
I don't want to. Sheila, do you remember that? If you're still there, President Gilmore, I thought it was
while you're talking.
I thought it was like $700 or something. I mean,
don't know why I had 2,000 in my head. Which was
I hope it's 2,000 and not 700, because
wow,
700 might get us an hour and a half. Like Attorney Burson, when he spoke at the one of our meetings, he just did that as a pro bono kind of favor situation, but we can't always count on that. I mean, we've been very lucky in a lot of ways where this ad hoc committee that that we just formed, we have the chair is a retired attorney. So we've been able to reach out to people that have good political minds and are attorneys, but that's not always going to be the case. We try to get I think that same idea of having the request go to the president and vice president of the council. And for request of use of an attorney and to select the attorney appropriate for the, how about select the appropriate attorney? You know what I mean? Let's not over specific. That way, if it's zoning related, we get somebody there. If it's somebody who, is contract based, because, if we have a breach of contract situation, or something like at the Lunt property where we're worried about that, we got to get someone in that expertise. But the same president, vice president should be able to obtain the correct attorney for the situation. And then we could have some, additional to that, if a request is denied, a counselor could ask to have it heard by full council.
So the budget line is 10,000.
Oh,
well, that's
that's great.
It still won't get you far.
No, but it's better than we were thinking.
Oh my God. I maybe, that's where my history, I'm thinking, what did I say? 700. I was scared to death. That doesn't pay for the stamps, that's better, but 10,000 could be one event, half an event. So do we want to, President Gilmore, how soon do we have to act on getting this? This isn't something that's pending, so we could write it up, submit it, and have it as a motion for the next A&O meeting?
I think that's fine. I have no current requests to use the legal budget.
Okay.
My concern is I don't want a counselor going to the clerk's office without anyone knowing about it, spending down our legal budget, and then have something happen and there's no money.
Perfect. So I will get something written for our next meeting with the approval from the committee that we will put something together saying that a counselor wishing a legal opinion on behalf of the council will submit the request to the president and vice president for determination on if counsel is needed, if it's a situation where the city attorney can handle it or an appropriate attorney is retained. If a counselor's request is denied, a counselor can ask for a vote of full council. Something along that line?
Sounds good to me.
Councilor Bullock, is that
Yep,
sound?
that sounds great.
Okay. So we'll get that in writing. I can either have Tammy put something together and then we can look at it for the next meeting because we have nothing pending that's there. Any other discussion on that? Anything I'm missing?
Thank you for doing that.
No, I think it's important. Okay, new business, anything? Old business?
I did have one thing from old business. So,
Sure.
Dan, I don't know if you saw it. I sent it to you a while ago. It was probably in mid-August or so. But I made some edits to a draft of the code of conduct.
Okay.
And so I would like to bring that to council floor and ask councilors to sign a code of conduct in the near future. It was based off of the draft that was sent initially that I think maybe was our code of conduct at one point, or maybe
Correct.
it's the city's code of conduct. But I just added a few lines in there basically it was that city councilors are expected to act in good faith and demonstrate honesty and integrity in their statements and actions. That council members are expected to participate in city council meetings and other public forums while demonstrating respect, consideration, and courtesy to fellow council members and employees and citizens. I believe that was the only change, other than I added the word language in we wouldn't tolerate harassment, discrimination, offensive behavior, or language. I added the word language.
And then I know we added to our rules of procedure the last time we added a piece that was kind of related to that. Let me look at what I'm thinking. So what I will do, you haven't seen, since you submitted that to me, and I saw that when I was going through things recently again, and why don't I send that edited draft? Did you send it to Tammy?
No, I only sent it to you first.
Okay. I'm going to send that edited draft. I'll take a look at it. I will send it to Tammy. Tammy will hopefully put it in a form of a motion, a proposal. Do we want it to come back to A&O and then forward it next month, or would that be acceptable to you?
That's acceptable, unless it's possible to move it forward, but we need to read it first, correct?
We really should. That's why I'm erring on caution. I believe that we might be able to get it edited and go on full council, but then it will have no recommendation from A&O.
Okay.
It'll be submitted by you individually, not by A&O, which is a fine line, but in this case, it could end up being a contentious piece, which it shouldn't, but it will. Oh, I know what I was thinking when I was saying I know we did. We just did that piece about how you have to meet with the town clerk for X amount of time. Remember we made that a new rule of procedure for new counselors?
Yep.
I think that in that orientation that is when they would sign off on the piece that you're going to resubmit. Mm-hmm. I knew there was something I wanted to tie it back to, and that was, I'll have to look and see what we said, but the code of conduct should be signed off at that time.
Yep, agreed.
And when you meet and you go down and you're saying, okay, I get my parking pass, I won't be an idiot, you know what I mean? I think that's all at the same time. I'm not going to treat people disrespectfully. I think you should know that right then.
Yeah. We signed our code of conduct for there was a tech one we signed. There
used to be a sexual harassment one. There was different things that you signed in that process. So I will talk to Tammy and see if that is just something that would be folded into that. But so that would be the question for you, Councilor Bullock, is do you want it to come from A&O or do you want it to come from you? And I'm thinking that it might have a little more teeth if it came from A&O, just to say that we all
that's fine. We can wait and do it. We can get it in the official format and do it next month.
October we'll have it, because we'll talk about it at the October meeting and we'll vote it, get it on the full agenda for October.
Sounds good.
All right, perfect. Thank you for doing that. I'm sorry that I failed to follow through sooner.
Fine.
Anything else? That was old business, and I really appreciate that. Our next meeting is scheduled for October 12th at 5:30 via Zoom, unless changed. Anything else?
I will not be here October 12th.
Okay. At this time, we might. I will see what else is going to happen, and if we're going to start if we're going to keep continuing with 3 people, that is very good. That I know you're not going to be there on October 12th because we need to move the meeting, and I'm not pressuring you. Obviously, people have other lives, so. But let me see what's going to happen, and I'm going to talk to President Gilmore because we have an open seat, kind of, and then we have one that was filled, but the person that filled it hasn't been in our last 2 meetings, so I just got to get some clarity. All right, our next meeting will be announced if we don't have it on October 12th. Does
can I
someone,
just say one
would
other
someone
thing
like,
about that?
what's
just-
that? Go ahead.
I just want to apologize. I had it, and to thank Marianne, I had it in my brain that these meetings happen at seven. It's late, at 6, and my calendar did say 5:30, but I did not look at it, and I'm sorry that I was late. And Marianne, thank you very much for texting me. And that's the type of thing that won't happen again, because now I'll remember.
I have
I
to
spent
look every month because every committee meeting is at a different start time.
Yeah.
I spent 3 hours today trying to learn how to open this meeting in Zoom because we
Oh.
changed our Chromebooks. I was
That's a
at
lot
the
of time.
town clerk's office. So that email that we all received today was because I unveiled a plethora of problems with Zoom. And then I got here and had to have Sheila open the meeting. So, hey, it's one of those days. So no, we appreciate that. But I will let people know, and I will talk to President Gilmore about having, a 5-member committee, which is the intention. Motion to adjourn from someone?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. We will end this meeting at 7:46. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion adjourned. Thank you for a long meeting, but I think we got a lot done.